What's up, guys? Today we got a new video. It is made by Paint Nerd. Go check him out. Crazy title, guys. The worst gooner deaths ever. Now, as a maximum level prestige gooner myself, gooning is a daily thing, right? Gooning is a lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? So, we're about to see how gooning can kill you, or how you can die while gooning. Hopefully you guys ready for a laugh, or get some knowledge. They may say some educational stuff here, we'll never know, but sit back, relax, get hydrated, get faded. I'm a little faded, but we're gonna get more faded. Like, sub, comment, all of that. Get ready, guys. And I'm gonna have to get ready because this title's crazy. That felt weird.
The asphyxiation gooning incident. On June 14, 1994, a 38-year-old man left his small home in Asheville, North Carolina, telling his family he was going for an evening walk to clear his mind. He often visited a wooded area behind a local park when he wanted privacy, and the route was familiar enough that no one thought much of it. Clad in casual outdoor clothing and carrying a small backpack, he walked into the tree line just before sunset, disappearing into the dense, quiet forest. As daylight faded, he ventured farther off the main path than usual, eventually
this guy died
stopping
from
in a secluded
suffocation.
clearing
That's
about
what
50 yards
asphyxiation
he
means.
set down his backpack,
removed
removed several personal items, and began preparing an arrangement using a rope tied between two sturdy trees. The setup appeared practiced, done with deliberate care, suggesting this was not the first time he had been in this spot or engaged in this ritual.
He's a maximum prestige gooner.
The man engaged in a sequence that involved controlled pressure and suspended positioning. At some point during the process, however, he shifted his weight incorrectly or misjudged the timing. The rope system, meant to allow controlled release, failed to do so once he lost consciousness. The moment he blacked out, his body became completely unsupported. Without the ability to adjust himself or break free, he remained suspended in a kneeling position, slumped forward and unable to breathe. Hours passed, and the forest remained quiet and undisturbed. The next afternoon, on June 15th, a group of hikers walked along the same trail, taking advantage of the warm weather. About half an hour into the hike, one of them noticed something odd. When they moved closer and saw the unmoving posture of the kneeling figure, they realized something was wrong. They immediately called 911. When paramedics arrived, they confirmed he had been dead for many hours. Investigators recognized the pattern as a classic case of accidental death during a private high-risk solitary act of gooning. The Goonside incident. On January 8, 2025, a 27-year-old man named Nautica Malone drove his sedan into the drive-through lane of Bikini Beans Coffee in Tempe, Arizona, just after 7 a.m. He had left home unusually early that morning, according to his family, saying he needed fresh air and a change of scenery. As he approached the service window, a barista preparing for the morning rush.
Hello, ma'am. Would you happen to know in which direction I should go to visit the wonderful city of Temecula?
Sir, you need to take a right and hop onto I-15 South. Have a nice trip.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What a nice man.
Temecula, here I come.
Noticed him rolling forward at a slow,
Let me know down below if you
when
guys
he
seen
reached
Ghost
the
of the
window,
Goon.
she greeted him, expecting a routine
I've seen
order.
it
But
one
within
time.
seconds, she realized Nautica had no pants on. She pulled out her phone and began recording the encounter, capturing the man's quiet, vacant expression as he sat behind the wheel. The video lasted only a few seconds before the car eased forward and exited the lane. The clip was shared privately at first, circulating among co-workers, but by late afternoon, it had been forwarded again and again until someone
crazy
uploaded
thing
it
is
to
he
social
killed
media.
himself the
Within
same
hours,
day.
it was widely circulating across multiple platforms, gathering captions, jokes, and commentary. Over the next 2 days, Malone withdrew from friends and family. According to relatives, he stayed mostly in his room, leaving only briefly to pick up mail or get water. He ignored calls from co-workers, disabled several of his social media accounts, and stopped responding to messages. His brother later told reporters that the shame and public attention seemed to overwhelm him almost instantly. And on the morning of January 11th, Malone left home quietly. He drove west toward Goodyear, Arizona, taking a long, looping route along the highway, avoiding busier exits. At some point during the drive, he called his brother, but the call went unanswered. When the brother returned the call minutes later, it rang without response. Just after 3 p.m., a passerby walking through a quiet parking area near a small business park noticed a black sedan parked at an odd angle beneath a tree. The engine was off, and the driver inside appeared completely still. The passerby approached slowly and tapped on the window, but there was no movement. Alarmed, they dialed 911 and reported an unresponsive person in the vehicle. Police and paramedics arrived within minutes. After forcing the door open, responders determined Malone had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, with the estimated time of death several hours earlier. A firearm was recovered inside the vehicle. On his phone, officers found a short message addressed to his family, written earlier that morning, apologizing for the pain he felt he had caused them. The falling Gooner incident. On March 18, 2011, a 32-year-old man returned to his small Milwaukee studio apartment after a long work shift.
Was it
He dropped his
Wisconsin?
keys on the counter, turned on his TV for background noise, and headed straight for the bathroom. A few minutes later, he
Falling
decided he wanted
Gooner.
to goon. He brought a small stool from the living room and placed it beside the bathtub. He propped his phone upright against a shampoo bottle, playing a video he wanted to goon to. Based on the coroner's office reconstruction, he climbed onto the small stool so he could goon in a certain position, but the stool wasn't stable on the slippery bathroom tiles. While he was in action, the stool suddenly slid out from
His
under him. He
phone
lost
fell
his
in the
balance
tub, I think.
instantly. He fell backward, hitting his head hard on the edge of the bathtub, and
That's
was
not
knocked
funny. That's not
unconscious
funny. That's not
immediately.
funny.
With no one
That's
else in
not
the
funny.
apartment to help him, he stayed on the floor without ever waking up. When he didn't show up for work the next morning, his co-workers requested a welfare check. The landlord entered the
Now I
apartment and
wonder,
found the
was
scene
his video
unchanged. The
on
phone still
autoplay?
playing, the
Yo.
stool overturned, and the man lying on the bathroom floor where he had fallen. Paramedics were called to the scene and they could
We're at 428. This is probably one of the worst ways to go. They couldn't delete his search history, and they saw the last thing he was watching, and he's just there butt naked, probably bleeding from his head. Goon. It didn't even get to goon. Wow. They saw what he was watching. Hopefully he wasn't on nothing too crazy. Damn. Where we at again? We at 428. 3, 2, 1.
confirmed he had died from a head injury caused by the fall. The latter incident. On June 11, 2019, a 38-year-old man in rural Oregon carried an aluminum ladder behind his
38-year-old?
house and placed it against a tall pine tree at the edge of his
ladder
property. He often
gooning
climbed the tree to get
incident.
cell reception, and neighbors later reported that he had a habit of
fuck?
spending long periods alone outdoors. That
Keep
afternoon,
it
he
calm,
set up the
bro. He
ladder
was
in a secluded spot and climbed roughly 15 feet up, settling on a
Was
sturdy
he
branch.
gooning
He
to
began engaging
strangers?
in gooning
Oh.
while seated on the branch, believing he was out of sight and in complete solitude. As the minutes passed, he shifted his weight repeatedly, bracing his foot
What
against
is
the
this
tree trunk while
animation?
using the other to maintain balance.
What is this
The branch
animation?
beneath him was stable, but the ladder he had climbed was not properly secured. At some point during his activity, his movement caused the ladder to tilt backward. Startled, he reached instinctively toward it, losing his balance on the branch in the process. Within seconds, he tumbled together with the ladder down the slope beneath the tree, striking the ground chest first. A hiker
Not
on a
gonna lie,
nearby
though.
trail heard the crash and
I think
discovered
he
him
was a
unconscious
ruler.
beside
He-
the flattened ladder.
I can't speak
Emergency
right now.
services were called immediately,
I think
but
he was a
despite
creep.
resuscitation
He was looking
efforts,
at them
he was pronounced
strangers. He
dead
was
at the
gooning
scene
to the
from blunt force
strangers.
trauma to the thorax,
Probably
including multiple fractured ribs and cardiac
being a
injury.
freak.
During the investigation, police found his phone, open browser tabs, and physical evidence confirming he had been engaging in solitary sexual activity
Gooning on
moments
a
before the
tree
fall.
15
The
feet up
D-cut
in the
incident.
air.
On July 14, 2016, a
He's
45-year-old
probably a
man
PDF
returned to
file.
his small apartment
I'm
in
not
Eastern
gonna lie, he
Europe
probably
after a
was.
day of running errands. He set down his bags, turned on a small radio for background noise, and made his way to the
Okay,
bedroom. He
okay.
retrieved a homemade metal device he had been experimenting with and
Y'all
brought
listen
it
to
to the
music
bed,
while
arranging
gooning?
it carefully
Let
for
me know
use.
down
Based
below.
on investigators' reconstruction, he attempted to use the device while sitting on the edge of the bed. The device was unstable and one of the metal parts suddenly snapped under pressure. The broken piece
Metal.
caused a deep cut to his groin. He tried to stop the bleeding, but the wound was severe and involved a major blood
metal
vessel. Alone in the
flashlight
apartment, he was unable to get
does.
help or call emergency services. Within minutes, he lost consciousness due to rapid blood
The
loss. When
metal
he didn't respond to
flashlight.
friends who visited later that evening, a welfare check was requested. Authorities entered the apartment and found the scene unchanged. The device broken, and the man lying unconscious on the bed where he had been attempting to use the device. Paramedics confirmed that he had died from hemorrhagic shock caused by the laceration. The obsessed gooner incident. On October 14, 2020, a 33-year-old man woke up in his small apartment in the city.
38-year-old?
His nights had become sleepless, spent scrolling
This
through
was,
videos
during
and live streams
COVID?
of a single adult performer he believed was secretly communicating with him. To him, every post, every glance at the camera was a coded message meant only for him. Investigators later found that he had stopped going to work,
Wow.
cut of his friends and family,
Wow,
and
wow,
had
wow.
isolated himself
That's why you
almost
can't be
entirely.
online, guys.
Notes, screenshots, and
We're at 6:59. This is why you have to limit yourself. Don't be gooning too much. Don't be on Reddit, Discord, Telegram. Don't be on them webcams, bro. You spend too much online, you get addicted to online, and then you start getting these traits and you start getting these fucking mental illnesses. This dude thought he had a connection. Like, bro, you were just a simp donating money. I can't think of the word. I know there's a word for this. But wow. Alright, let's see what happened. No way he stalked her or something. 3, 2, 1.
Printed messages littered his apartment, all meticulously annotated with interpretations of the performer's signals. Over time, his fixation had escalated. He convinced himself that he needed to meet her in person to prove his loyalty. That morning, he packed a backpack with essentials, including a handwritten letter and several printed screenshots, and left his apartment. He traveled by public transit to the city where he believed she was filming, following directions pieced
went to a
together
meet and
from
greet?
interviews and online posts. For hours, he
Maybe went
wandered
and
near the
showed his
area,
meat.
checking security cameras and rehearsing what he would say. He refused to contact anyone for help, believing that any interference would ruin everything.
This
As
is
evening
crazy,
approached, he attempted to climb a fire escape to get a closer look at the studio where he believed she was working. Surveillance footage
And I
later
bet
showed
you he
him
probably
pause
looked
midway, hesitate, then lose his footing. Emergency responders
like the
arrived
type
too
of guy
late. He
to
was
do
already
this.
dead. The medical examiner ruled the death an accidental fall, noting that exhaustion, sleep deprivation, and distraction from obsessive fixation had contributed to his fall. Law enforcement later confirmed that the adult performer had no knowledge of his existence, had never communicated with him, and played no role in the accident.
Yep. There we go. That seals the deal right there. He did it all for nothing. And in his head, he thought he did it for something. Wow. Literally fell down the stairs. He was a maximum level. Well, everybody in this was probably maximum level prestige, level 1000 gooner, but this guy was a higher level. He was at level 1001. Because, I mean, sleep deprivation, killing his brain cells. He was probably not eating. This is probably the guy that goons 3 hours a day, minimum. But, shout out to everybody here. Shout out to y'all that are gooners. Hashtag gooner gang. Hashtag gooner for life. Like and sub, comment, and all of that. You know, every comment helps, you know, put me in the algorithm, right? Hopefully this video wasn't too trash, but I'm gonna make my next video way better. Like, sub, comment, stay faded, stay hydrated. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.